Delisa Dice with the American Heart Association. I am the Design Director for Healthcare Solutions. I focus primarily on emergency care, but also work cross-functionally and provide some training for our lay audience as well.
And I'm Tracy Huckabee with Principal Technologies. PT designs and develops custom training solutions. And Delisa and I have worked together collaboratively since 2014 on a number of projects. Today we're going to talk about two in particular, and we'll get started. All right, so our session is about learning in the attention economy, but what is the attention economy? We like this photo because we think it does a good job of capturing this. We've all seen this while we're driving. We may be guilty of it. We can't wait for anything today, and part of the reason why is there's so much vying for our attention. We have social media, we have marketing, we have training, we have home, games.
All on, all the time.
That's right. Even to the potential harm of ourselves or others, we have to get it. But this applies to our learners too, and so if we want to develop effective training, we have to be able to grab their attention with the learning solutions we create. But unfortunately, the learning industry historically hasn't been great at developing engaging e-learning solutions.
Yeah, you've never seen this, the bored guy. None of us have ever experienced that.
I've been developing learning since 1995, believe it or not dating myself, and I've seen a lot of very bad e-learning. And sometimes it's less important than others. There are topics that if the training isn't successful, it's not a total waste. What if lives literally depended on having great learning design?
So this is my daily challenge. We all joke, or a lot of times you hear people say, well, nobody's going to die. With the work we do at American Heart Association, somebody could die. So it's really important that we gain people's attention. The American Heart Association mission is to become a force for longer and healthier lives. So we do all sorts of things to bring that mission to life. One big piece that we do is research, cardiovascular research, and then we bring that science to life as statements and guidelines that get to the clinical, to the bedside, and care for the patients. So to be able to do that, we deliver training in multiple different mechanisms to meet the needs of our audience. So we do instructor-led classroom training. We also do blended learning, so they take all the cognitive portion online, and then they come in and meet with an instructor to test out their skills. We also have a fully automated solution that we have in the healthcare arena, where a technology station does all of the cognitive training with them, and then it provides quarterly training on their skills. So all of these guidelines and our courses come out on kind of a regular schedule that typically has been anywhere from 1 year to 5 years. But what happens, what if something comes out in between these guideline cycles that's really important that we need to get to the bedside immediately? So this happened a few years ago. A very important scientific statement came out, and the research from that statement showed that we could save approximately 500,000 more lives if healthcare providers both in and pre-hospital were providing higher quality CPR and resuscitation care. So leadership came and said, how can we make this important? How can we get people's attention? And by the way, here's some grant funding. Go and see what you can create to get their attention. So what was born from that was what we call the CPR Throwdown. These were live challenge events. This one that you're seeing was for our EMS audience. So we would take these around to different healthcare conferences and allow the providers to actually compete against, challenge one another, different teams, but also, as you can see, the screen in the background is we actually have technology today that provides real-time feedback on their CPR performance. So the system itself actually coaches them to improve as they're doing this challenge event. So it's important for the audience to see themselves in the scenario, so we created a different type of event for in-hospital for the nursing. They would compete with the patient in a hospital bed. Same type of challenge, they had to meet the metrics that were in that CPR statement to provide higher quality CPR. So one thing we knew before we started doing these events, the healthcare providers think they're doing excellent CPR. I've been doing this for 20 years and I know what I'm doing. They'd go against these feedback devices and realize, wow, maybe that's not the case. So these events were hugely successful. We had thousands of teams go through these competitions. We had a couple of challenges. One, these were not easy or inexpensive to put on. Also, in the best of worlds, not every healthcare provider has the funds to actually attend these conferences live. So we were looking for ways to scale this up and take this into a digital environment. And so that's when I first contacted Tracy at PT, and we were able to turn this into something that we could scale for the larger audience.
That's right. So that was the challenge. So at the beginning of the initiative, we had to select technologies that we would use to develop this digital solution. So we chose HTML as the development tool, but we chose not to house this in a learning management system, which is typical for a lot of our clients, but instead we created a front-end web page that housed it and then a back-end SQL database to enable some of the game mechanics we wanted to do, such as leaderboards. A couple other reasons that we didn't use the LMS is one, it wouldn't enable the leaderboards, and two, we wanted to keep all the collateral nicely together, and we didn't want the LMS to be any sort of barrier to entry. We wanted to reach as many people as we possibly could. So when we started the design, luckily we were able to leverage a lot of the design elements from the original live event, the Throwdown. So we repeated the pit crew type of theme or racing theme, which grabbed them right away. We continue that metaphor with calling the levels laps. We also did some fun things like sound effects.
Yeah, great music in the background.
Yeah.
Fun animations.
Exactly. But another thing we did to hold their attention is to break the content down. It's a lot of content. The guidelines covered a lot of content, but to break it and distill it into 3 bite-sized pieces. So the first one being compressions on the chest, and the second lap being ventilation or giving breathing, and then the third giving feedback to another team member who was performing those activities. We also gave the learners an element of choice, so they could either choose to go through a quick prep training, which consisted of 5 micro videos, or they could jump right into the game and start playing.
So even though we turned this into a game, the science is still important. So we had to push the technology to meet the metrics of the science. So we had to basically create in this digital game the same kind of performance metrics that they were getting at those live events with those accurate feedback devices. So we went through several different iterations to get so the technology could meet those metrics, and they would show the actual performance of the CPR speed and the depth, as well as the ventilations.
Right, and as they go through, there are a few game mechanics that we use in addition to leaderboards, which I mentioned. There's a score that you can see there at the top of the screen, and there's a timer, so it counts down as they go, and then it gives live feedback too, where it says keep it up. That's their live feedback that they get throughout.
So the other thing that's important with any training, but particularly in healthcare roles, is what are they supposed to do? What is their role? Do they see themselves in the training? So with the resuscitation events, we'd allow them to run through the different roles so they could see how they would transfer that into their clinical practice. So the other thing, we knew that part of our healthcare audience is really big on social media, so we wanted to leverage them to allow them, one, to get some bragging rights and share, look what I just scored or what I won, but also to help push the larger message so it drives them back to that website that Tracy was showing. And there they can access all the other scientific and healthcare information to help them better care for their patients. So one philosophy that we have in my department at AHA is if it's important enough to create it, it's important enough to promote it, to get the message out and make sure that these tools and this training is being used by the audience.
And that's a bit novel to think about promoting learning in the same way we would promote anything else with a full marketing campaign. But one of the things we did to help the promotional efforts is to create a teaser video, or rather a movie trailer style video that could drum up excitement, and it featured screenshots from the live course. So now we're going to transition a little bit to another topic. It had a very different outcome because it was a very different audience, very different topic.
Yep, so unfortunately, I'm sure you've all heard now of the opioid crisis that is affecting our country. So this, as Tracy mentioned, it was a very serious topic that we chose to address in a different way. Every day, 130 people are dying from the opioid crisis. So with the resuscitation care that we already do, we're already addressing opioid overdose and how they would respond as a clinician or even just a lay audience or a coworker if you saw someone collapse from a suspected opioid overdose. So we wanted to create a course, a microlearning course that would allow them to rapidly get the information they needed either in the healthcare environment or to respond to a coworker, a friend, or a family member to be able to help the person get the care and the treatment that they needed.
So this was a tight time frame project. We needed to get out a version 1, I think in 6 weeks, and then a version 2, which would be more robust after that. So one of the things we did was Delisa flew out to the PT offices right at the very beginning of the project so that we could collaborate and brainstorm as a team. We had members from development there, graphic design, project management, instructional design, so we had multiple perspectives. So we brainstormed the look and feel as well as the functionality.
And we iterated the design. So initially we knew that we needed to create the 2 courses. We also knew that immediately, for several reasons, we wanted to get out version 1. So we were actively building and creating that at the same time, kind of in a parallel path, planning for what we were going to do for V2.
And the technologies we used in this solution for version 1, we used Articulate Storyline, which is a rapid development tool. And then for version 2, we used pure HTML, which allowed us to have a fully responsive solution and with more WCAG compliant accessibility features. But both solutions were accessible and met the WCAG compliance guidelines.
So we wanted, again, to create an engaging front door to the course. We chose to do these icons and allow them to see the way that they would work through the course in kind of this circular versus a linear kind of menu. We also use the AHA branding. You can see the AHA heart and torch in the center, and that with the percentage showing them where they're at, how much they have left to complete the entire course.
We wanted to have a lot of variety in the interactions, even though we had a bit of a constraint with the WCAG compliant guidelines. So we created over 20 different interactions. As you can see, the image here on the left is what the menu adjusted to automatically on screen. So it went from the spiral menu to the more linear menu. Every single interaction, every single screen does that, so it optimizes for mobile. We also created some custom illustrations, which we then animated and turned into videos, demonstrating the most important processes. So in this course, with this content, it was showing administration of Narcan during an overdose in 4 different ways.
We also were able to bring actual patient cases to life in this course. So for the healthcare provider course, we have 3 different patient scenarios that the healthcare provider then interacts in the way that they can show what they would delineate or what's important for this particular patient's care. One of those cases then actually also James presents as a co-worker in the lay case, so it shows them again how they would respond to be able to help him from the overdose, the immediate help, as well as helping support him as he's dealing with his opioid use disorder.
And the case studies allowed us to bring in some narrative as well, so we could talk about some of the patient personas that were most likely to have overdoses.
So one thing that's always important, especially for the healthcare audience, is to make it relevant for them. Show them how it affects their clinical practice and what they can do. We also use it as a call to action for the lay audience. Basically, again, you can do something. How can you help? So again, this topic is very important, so we want to make sure that it gets leverage behind it. So in addition to all the marketing, advertising, PR, social media work we're doing, we're actively partnering and working with government groups to help push this training out to get it to the audience that need it the most.
And this initiative will also have a promotional teaser video to help with those efforts. So our key takeaways in thinking about learning in the attention economy across not only these 2 projects, but the other projects we've worked on are as follows.
Yeah, what's the key takeaway? If I can get you to change 1 to 3 things, that's what I'm going to hit in the education, especially in the microlearning modules. We really want to give them the 1 or 2 things that they can do to actually save lives tomorrow.
Yeah, and once you have those 1 or 2 key behaviors that you're focused on, you can present those in microlearning with microlearning strategies. So it can be a game, it can be a very short video, it can be a short module, but it could also be other out-of-the-box things like puzzles or challenges on social media.
And the other thing we try and build with design thinking, so we are agile in our development and we're constantly iterating. We're taking that learner feedback or other types of feedback and incorporating it into the next version of the course itself.
And even within the project, we worked in a very agile way, prototyping and revising as we went along. All right, thank you so much for your attention.